Hello, thanks for checking out this video. My name is Zach. I am a lifelong lover of science fiction, fantasy, manga, comics, and everything in between. And today I am talking about my review and thoughts on finally finishing Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. So this book has been a long time coming. I started reading Stormlight I checked Goodreads 2021. I binged the first 3 novels. I loved Way of Kings. Once it got going, of course, so it took me a while to get into Way of Kings. The first half was kind of a slog. Just getting back into that fantasy is my first epic fantasy I'd read in a long time, back in 2021. But once they got to the Sanderlanche at the end of Way of Kings, amazing, instantly hooked. Read, Words of Radiance immediately afterwards. Loved Words of Radiance. Have great memories of Kaladin speaking the second oath. Just amazing stuff. Then straight into Oathbringer. Also amazing. Dalinar, of course, cemented as the GOAT. He's amazing. Love Dalinar. Favorite character, maybe after Kaladin. I still love Kaladin, of course, so maybe second favorite character, but, such a great book. Oathbringer was also amazing. 10 out of 10 easily as well. First 3 are all 10 out of 10s for me. And then I got into Rhythm of War. So it was the Stormlight Archive, just binge fest 3 in a row. And I started this novel. I checked my Goodreads activity, July 2022. And here we are, December 2024. And I finally finished it just because Wind and Truth just was released in here right now, December 2024. So I felt like obligated that, the book 5 is finally out. So I need to finish this series. And I'm going to push through and finish Rhythm of War. So as you may have seen in some of my more recent videos, I have been getting into these longer, slower series, namely Wheel of Time. So having read the first 4 books of Wheel of Time, I thought, okay, maybe my headspace, I've quote unquote matured as a fantasy reader, that slow paced middle book syndrome, which I feel Rhythm of War has, that's my critique of it, is now that I've kind of done a couple other slower fantasy series, it's not going to be as action-packed as maybe the very beginning of Way of Kings, towards the Sanderlanche stuff later in those novels. But I'm ready for it. I'm going to push through the middle section that kept getting me tripped up on and finish out Rhythm of War. So that said, the book itself still is an amazing piece of fantasy, high fantasy, whatever you want to call a classified type of fantasy. Still love Brandon Sanderson. I've now read 4 now of Stormlight. I also read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter over the summer, which was also amazing. I loved all the references to things like Final Fantasy X and Hikaru no Go. So loved Yumi. It was a great side story and my first outside of the Cosmere. Well, I guess I take that back. I read a little of Mistborn, the first book of Mistborn, and that's another series I haven't got into either. Again, I think I was just not in the right headspace, but I got about 25-30% through of The Final Empire and DNF that, returned to the library. And yeah, I think I was just in a Sanderson rut at the time, not being able to finish Mistborn, and here not being able to finish Rhythm of War. But I pushed through, and of course, glad I did. It's still a great novel. I think what got me was just the tone shift from the previous 3. You're on this journey, and if you're being critical, it is becoming a bit formulaic. That by the end of the novel, as we've seen 3 times prior to this, Kaladin's going to speak the next oath, and he's going to power up and be able to overcome the bad guy of the novel or whatever his final battle is, and using his new saying the next words that he's going to power up and defeat that. And as we head into Rhythm of War, the early part of the novel, once it kind of established itself, and where I kind of got stuck in, is Kaladin depowers. And for being a fan of Kaladin and also of Dalinar, they're not featured as prominently maybe as central characters in this novel compared to others. I feel with all the Venli and Eshonai stuff that they weren't quite the focus that I had hoped. So this did feel that bridge novel middle book syndrome, I think, is what got me stuck on this. Because, you have Venli and the backstories with Eshonai and her learning about war form and storm form, I should say. And then Kaladin is, of course, dealing with his mental health issues that we had also previously seen in the last novel. So I think that was also kind of the repeat of Kaladin in a similar spot. And also, since we're in Eleutheru, we're kind of stuck in one location as opposed to being more grand in scale, at least for Kaladin and Dalinar. That yes, you have Adolin's story going to lasting integrity, which is okay. Shadesmar is okay-ish, but maybe not as exciting. And then, of course, the other POV is Shallan. I've never been the biggest Shallan fan, and Shallan also felt very similar, her journey in this novel, to the previous ones, that she's still dealing with, the multiple personalities. Of course, spoiler, that at the end, she finally does integrate. So this did wrap up nicely once you finally got to the Sanderlanche at the end of Rhythm of War. But some of the middle section, it was a very long book, and I think it definitely could have cut down some of these middle filler episode stuff, like a filler anime series. It's kind of a lot of filler stories. And then, yes, we saw some character growth, and, Adolin had his, big moment finally. And I did like, speaking of Adolin, the ending, of course, it did wrap up things nicely with Maya and the Deadeyes and that whole revelation that the recreance actually was mutual. It was a great twist that's kind of why the Honor Spren weren't, or all Spren, are so cautious. And then to have Deadeye speak at the end and confirm everything was a great kind of resolution to Adolin. So he definitely rose in my rankings of characters that I enjoyed. Kaladin predictably does get his powers back at the end, so it wasn't that big of a reveal. And then again, yes, he does speak the fourth ideal. He gets the shard plate, which is kind of cool because we've never seen Kaladin with the shard plate. Obviously, we've seen the other, in other stories. So, but it just wasn't as satisfying final battle from Kaladin. Dalinar, again, not super exciting. He didn't really have any big moments this book. I guess, again, since I'm talking about the ending was satisfying with the twist. Taravangian, obviously, a big twist I didn't really see coming. That, again, this is the whole plot line with the formula thing that he's been working on for the past, since we've known him. Smart Taravangian and dumb Taravangian. And the fact that, he becomes Odium was really cool. So, but again, that did make this be that filler bridge book, because obviously this is setting up for Wind and Truth, which just came out, the Contest of Champions, which I guess was Dalinar's whole subplot, that he's going to finally do this. But again, it didn't resolve anything about Odium, that now we're just finally at the last battle, the real last battle this time. What other things? Dalinar, Adolin, Taravangian, and Venli and Eshonai. They were probably my least favorite storyline, was the whole Venli flashback. That yes, it builds out the world, but I guess never really got too invested into Venli and Eshonai's story. And then lastly is, of course, Navani and the sibling. We kind of saw it coming, how, Kaladin's working in this, working to save the tower, that eventually something's going to happen with the sibling. They can't just stand there. But the fact that Navani became a bondsmith too was a bit of a twist for me. I knew she was probably going to do something with the sibling and kind of resolve that, as finally Kaladin powers back up and is able to save the tower. And speaking of other bonding, I guess Venli at the end sort of came around because she became radiant, which I guess you kind of saw coming since she had Timber inside her. It was just a matter of time before that connection, but actually didn't kind of make the connection in my mind that yes, she has Timber inside her, but I thought it was going to go a way of being some kind of Void Spren, like secret agent thing that was going on. Not that she would become radiant, but of course, as the end of the novel neared, she became radiant and started speaking the oath. So it's interesting where this is going. And again, my general thoughts that this is going to be the setup for Wind and Truth, which, as of recording this, early December 2024, reviews seem mixed, but I feel like it's one of those books that I have to finish because I just have to finish the series. And even if it is as, a bit of a slog looking at the length as Rhythm of War was, at least it's going to give resolution to this first half, or first tetraology of five-ology of Stormlight Era 1. So it's going to be good to see this resolution of this arc and see where it goes, whether it's the ending you wanted or not, but at least it's going to be a ending. So all that to say, my thoughts on Rhythm of War, that it was still a great novel. A lot happened in such a long book. You expect something to happen. It could probably use better editing. It did feel a little bit slow in the middle. That's why I put it down for over a year. It took me a year to come back to it. I had gone back here and there, read a little bit, then just went to another novel. I read like one chapter, put away for 6 months, and then try and come back to it. It'd been sitting there forever in my Goodreads activity log. Every time I log a new book, there's Rhythm of War staring at me, stuck at like 40% and just never making progress. But I made that final push, finished up Rhythm of War. If I had to assign it a numerical value, it would be probably 4.75 out of 5. It's still like almost a 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5 book. Just in general, Stormlight is still great. So when you compare it to other books, it's still a really well-told story. It keeps you engaged. Has a lot of characters. They still do a lot, even if it's kind of that middle book syndrome. So it wasn't like a 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5 for me. But comparing to some other books, it's definitely better than other things I've read. So it still has me engaged and invested in the series. And I still care about the characters. I still want to see Kaladin succeed, even though he had some slow parts in the middle, like the Lyran stuff was a little bit slow and all this. But he is resolving it and growing as a character. And I hope we get more Dalinar in Wind and Truth and more Kaladin, of course. Those are the characters that I love, and I want to see where this goes in Stormlight 5, Wind and Truth. So those are my thoughts. Still enjoyed it. Still enjoying Stormlight in general, and I want to see how this wraps up. It's probably going to be a while before I get to Wind and Truth, given the length and my other books in my queue, but I'm excited to see how Stormlight wraps up. So thanks for watching, and have a great day.